A single dad janitor told the paralyzed CEO, "I'll help you walk." She laughed, then cried. "I never thought I'd fall in love with the man who mopped my office floors, but life has a way of bringing people together when they're at their lowest." What happened next changed everything. Alexandra Winters sat motionless in her wheelchair, staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office. 3 months ago, she'd been sprinting through Central Park training for a marathon. Now, doctors told her she might never walk again. The car accident had shattered more than her spine, it had broken her spirit. Little did she know, the quiet janitor who emptied her trash each night was about to turn her world upside down. Mike Reynolds pushed his cleaning cart down the empty hallway of Winters Enterprises at 9:30 p.m. Most executives had gone home hours ago, but the light in the CEO's office still burned. It had been that way every night since he'd started this job 6 weeks ago. A single dad working 2 jobs to support his daughter Emma, Mike needed this gig desperately after his wife walked out on them last year. As he approached the partially open door, he heard something that stopped him cold, sobbing. "Ma'am? You okay in there?" he asked, gently pushing the door open. Alexandra quickly wiped her tears, embarrassed to be caught in a moment of weakness. "I'm fine. Just finish your work and go." But Mike didn't move. Instead, he looked directly at her wheelchair, then at the crumpled physical therapy pamphlets on the floor. "You know, I used to be a physical therapist before life happened," he said quietly. Alexandra scoffed. "Right. And I used to dance ballet." "I'm serious," Mike replied. "I specialized in spinal cord injuries before my daughter got sick and I had to quit to care for her." "Well, good for you," Alexandra said bitterly. "But unless you can make miracles happen, I suggest you stick to cleaning." Mike stepped forward, his eyes kind but determined. "I'll help you walk again." She laughed, a harsh, broken sound. Then, to her horror, she began to cry. What Alexandra didn't know was that Mike's offer would lead to a journey neither of them expected. And the man she dismissed as just a janitor would become the most important person in her life. 2 weeks later, Alexandra found herself in the company gym after hours, Mike standing beside her wheelchair. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "I pay top specialists who say this is permanent." "With all due respect, Ms. Winters, those specialists don't know what I know." "And what's that?" she challenged. "That you haven't given up, no matter what you tell everyone else." He gestured to the calluses on her palms. "Those come from trying to move yourself when no one's watching." Alexandra felt exposed, vulnerable. "Don't pretend to know me." "I don't," Mike said softly. "But I'd like to." Their eyes met, and something shifted between them. For the first time since her accident, Alexandra felt a flicker of hope. But across town, Dr. James Harrington, Alexandra's ex-fiancé and head of her medical team, scrolled through security footage of the company gym. His eyes narrowed as he watched Mike helping Alexandra. James had built his reputation on her case, predicting she'd never walk again. If she improved under someone else's care, especially a janitor's, his credibility would be destroyed. "This ends now," he muttered, reaching for his phone. Over the next month, Alexandra and Mike developed a routine. Every night after the building emptied, they worked together in the gym. Progress was agonizingly slow, a twitch of her toes, the slightest bend of her knee, but it was progress. "Why are you doing this?" she asked one night as Mike gently stretched her legs. "You barely know me." Mike was quiet for a moment. "My daughter Emma had leukemia. Everyone said she wouldn't make it, but I refused to believe them. I learned everything I could about her condition, became her advocate. Today she's in remission." "That's amazing," Alexandra whispered. "The point is, sometimes the experts are wrong. Sometimes you need someone who sees possibilities instead of limitations." Alexandra reached for his hand. "Thank you for seeing possibilities in me." Their fingers intertwined, and neither pulled away. "You're different than I expected," she admitted. "How so?" "I thought all janitors were," she stopped, embarrassed. "Uneducated? Invisible?" Mike finished, his voice gentle rather than accusatory. "I'm sorry," she said, meaning it. "No need to be sorry. Just be open to seeing people differently." That night, as Mike helped her back into her wheelchair, their faces came close. For a breathless moment, Alexandra thought he might kiss her. Instead, he stepped back, professional once more. "Same time tomorrow?" he asked. She nodded, ignoring the disappointment in her chest. What Alexandra didn't know was that tomorrow would bring a crisis that would test everything between them. When Alexandra arrived at work the next morning, security guards were escorting Mike from the building. "What's happening?" she demanded, wheeling herself forward. "This man has been falsifying his credentials," said James, stepping from behind the guards. "He's not a licensed physical therapist. In fact, he lost his license 5 years ago for malpractice." Alexandra looked at Mike in shock. "Is this true?" Mike's face was pale. "I can explain. He's been manipulating you," James continued. "Playing on your hopes while potentially causing permanent damage." "That's not true," Mike protested. "I let my license lapse to care for Emma, but I never committed malpractice." Alexandra felt dizzy with confusion. "You lied to me." "I didn't lie about helping you," Mike said desperately. "Alexandra, please. It's Ms. Winters to you," she said coldly. "Please leave." As the guards led Mike away, James placed a hand on Alexandra's shoulder. "I've only ever wanted what's best for you. Let's get you back to proper treatment." Alexandra nodded numbly, but as she watched Mike disappear through the lobby doors, something felt terribly wrong. 3 days later, Alexandra sat in her apartment, staring at her useless legs. Without Mike's sessions, the small progress she'd made seemed to be slipping away. Or maybe it had all been in her imagination. A knock at her door startled her. When she opened it, she found Emma, Mike's 10-year-old daughter, standing in the hallway. "My dad didn't do anything wrong," Emma said without preamble. "He helped me when everyone else gave up." "Emma, this is complicated." "No, it's not," the girl interrupted. "My dad says when something matters, you fight for it. Don't you think walking again matters?" Alexandra felt tears spring to her eyes. "Of course it does. Then why aren't you fighting?" Emma handed her a folder. "Here's everything about my dad's case. He didn't lose his license for malpractice. He surrendered it because he couldn't complete his continuing education while taking care of me." Alexandra opened the folder, scanning the documents inside. Everything Emma said was true. And there was more: testimonials from former patients, medical journal articles Mike had published, awards for his innovative therapy techniques. "Why didn't he tell me all this?" Alexandra whispered. "He said you needed to believe in yourself, not his credentials," Emma replied simply. Alexandra made a decision. "Emma, I need your help with something." 1 week later, James strode into Alexandra's office for their scheduled appointment. He stopped short when he saw Mike standing beside her desk. "What is he doing here?" James demanded. "I invited him," Alexandra said calmly. "And I've been doing some research." She pushed a stack of papers toward James. "Interesting how your treatment protocol for my case differs so dramatically from standard practice." James paled. "I was being cautious. You were ensuring I'd never recover," Alexandra cut in. "Because as long as I was in this wheelchair, you controlled my treatment, my company's medical contracts, and me." "That's absurd," James sputtered. "Is it?" "Because I've had 3 other specialists review my case, and they all agree, your approach was designed to minimize recovery." James's face hardened. "You can't prove anything." "I don't need to." I just need to walk again. Alexandra looked at Mike. Ready? Mike moved to her side as she gripped the arms of her wheelchair. Slowly, painfully, she pushed herself up. Her legs trembled violently, but they held her weight as Mike supported her. James watched in horror as Alexandra took one shaky step forward, then another. This is just the beginning, she told James. Security will escort you out. Your contract with my company is terminated, effective immediately. After James was gone, Alexandra collapsed back into her wheelchair, exhausted but triumphant. That was amazing, Mike said, kneeling beside her. I couldn't have done it without you, she replied, taking his hand. I'm sorry I didn't trust you. You had no reason to, he said. Trust is earned. And have you earned it now? She asked softly. Instead of answering, Mike leaned forward and kissed her. When they broke apart, both were smiling through tears. I think we've both earned a new beginning, he whispered. 6 months later, Alexandra walked down the aisle of Winters Enterprises' annual charity gala without assistance, Mike and Emma beaming proudly from the front row. The company's new foundation, dedicated to making cutting-edge physical therapy accessible to everyone, was officially launching tonight. As Alexandra reached the podium, applause thundered through the ballroom. A year ago, I thought my life was over, she began. I was told I'd never walk again, and I believed it. But someone saw possibilities where others saw limitations. Someone who taught me that our greatest strength often comes when we're at our lowest point. She looked directly at Mike. Sometimes help comes from unexpected places. Sometimes the person who changes your life isn't who you imagine they'd be. But they're exactly who you need. After the speech, as they danced slowly together, Mike whispered, "Did I ever tell you why I took that janitor job at your company specifically?" Alexandra shook her head. I read about your accident. I knew from the reports that the doctors were wrong about your prognosis. I came there to help you. You planned this all along? She asked, amazed. Let's just say I believed in possibilities, he replied with a smile. As they swayed to the music, Alexandra realized that sometimes life's greatest gifts come disguised as its greatest challenges. And sometimes, the people we overlook are the ones who see us most clearly. 1 year later, Alexandra stood at the edge of Central Park, the same spot where she used to begin her morning runs before the accident. The rising sun painted the sky in shades of pink and gold. She wore running shoes for the first time since that fateful day. You sure about this? Mike asked, standing beside her with Emma. Alexandra took a deep breath. No. But you taught me that's okay. She took the first step, then another. Not running yet, that would come later, but walking with confidence that grew with each stride. Mike and Emma matched her pace, one on each side. You know, Alexandra said, the board thinks I'm crazy for marrying the company janitor. Mike laughed. Former janitor. Current director of rehabilitation services. And future husband, Emma added with a grin. Alexandra stopped and turned to face them both. I used to think success meant corner offices and billion-dollar deals. Now I know it's about who walks beside you when the path gets rough. That evening, as they prepared dinner in Alexandra's apartment, now their shared home, Mike pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. I was going to wait until our anniversary next month, but... He opened it to reveal a simple but elegant engagement ring. Alexandra's eyes filled with tears. It's perfect. Like us, Mike said. Not perfect individually, but perfect together. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Alexandra thought about the journey that had brought them here. From CEO and janitor to partners in every sense. From paralysis to possibility. From strangers to family. Later that night, as Emma slept and they sat on the balcony overlooking the city lights, Alexandra rested her head on Mike's shoulder. You know what still amazes me, she said softly. What's that? That the moment that should have destroyed my life ended up saving it instead. Mike kissed the top of her head. That's how healing works. It's never about going back to who you were. It's about discovering who you can become. 5 years later, Alexandra and Mike stood hand in hand at the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Winters Reynolds Rehabilitation Center. What had begun as a small foundation had grown into a nationwide network of clinics providing affordable, cutting-edge therapy to those who needed it most. Mom! Dad! Look! 12-year-old Emma called, pointing to a young woman taking her first steps with a walker after a spinal injury similar to Alexandra's. Beside Emma stood her 3-year-old brother, Jack, named after Mike's father who had taught him everything about perseverance. Alexandra squeezed Mike's hand as they watched the woman's face transform with the same hope she had once found. "Remember when you told me you'd help me walk again? And you laughed," Mike finished with a smile. "Then cried," she added. "I never imagined where that moment would lead us." That night, after the children were asleep, Alexandra found Mike in their home office, reviewing patient files. She wrapped her arms around him from behind. "You know what James said to me today?" she asked. James had eventually apologized and now consulted occasionally for their foundation, humbled by his past mistakes. "What's that?" He said, "Watching you work with patients is like watching someone speak a language only they can hear. That you see healing patterns no one else notices." Mike turned to face her. "I just see people, not conditions. Like I saw you that first night, not a CEO in a wheelchair, just a woman who needed someone to believe in her." Alexandra took his face in her hands. "You didn't just help me walk again. You taught me how to truly live." As they embraced, Alexandra reflected on how far they'd come. From that night in her office when a janitor had made an impossible promise, to building a life and legacy together that would help thousands walk their own paths to healing. "By the way," Mike said, pulling back slightly, "I got a call today from that medical journal. They want to publish our research on integrated recovery approaches." Alexandra smiled. Dr. and Mrs. Reynolds, published authors. "Who would have thought?" "I would," Mike said simply. "I always believed in possibilities." If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more stories that remind us of the power of human connection. I'd love to know which country you're watching from. Drop it in the comments below. Remember, the most beautiful journeys often begin when we're brave enough to see possibilities instead of limitations. And sometimes, the most important people in our lives are the ones we least expect.